What if the motorcade in Dallas had taken a different route? In our timeline, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, on November 22, 1963. The nation watched in horror as the young president died and Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson took the oath of office aboard Air Force One. But what if the shots had missed? What if JFK had survived and finished his presidency? For JFK to survive, the assassination attempt must fail. Perhaps the motorcade speeds away. Perhaps the gunman misses. Kennedy is wounded but recovers, and the nation rallies around him. The investigation still hunts for conspirators, but the presidency continues. JFK returns to the White House in early 1964, battered but determined to win re-election. In our timeline, Lyndon Johnson defeated Barry Goldwater in a landslide, riding a wave of national grief and sympathy. A surviving JFK would have likely won just as decisively. He was charismatic, young, and now a survivor of a deadly attack. The election would have been a referendum on his leadership, and the American people would have given him 4 more years. This is where history might change most. Historians still debate whether JFK would have escalated the Vietnam War as Johnson did. In this alternate timeline, JFK uses his political capital to seek a negotiated settlement. He is wary of getting bogged down in an Asian land war. American troop levels stay low, and the anti-war movement of the late 1960s never reaches the same explosive intensity. JFK supported civil rights, though cautiously at first. A second term might have pushed him to act more boldly. With his enormous popularity, he could have passed stronger civil rights legislation earlier than 1964. The Voting Rights Act and Fair Housing Act might arrive sooner. However, his political survival depends on holding together a fragile Democratic coalition torn between Northern liberals and Southern segregationists. JFK's handling of the Cuban Missile Crisis had already shown his skill in nuclear brinkmanship. In a second term, he pursues a limited test ban treaty and direct communication with the Soviet Union. Relations with Moscow remain tense, but the risk of accidental nuclear war decreases. The Berlin Wall still stands, and the arms race continues, yet the world feels slightly less dangerous. JFK had promised to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. With him alive, that deadline gains even more personal meaning. NASA receives steady funding and political support. The Apollo program lands astronauts on the moon in 1969 as planned, perhaps with Kennedy watching from the Oval Office. After Apollo, he pushes for a Mars mission by the 1980s. A surviving JFK likely pushes for tax cuts, healthcare expansion, and federal education funding. Medicare might pass earlier than it did under Johnson. The Great Society programs still happen, but perhaps in a different form. Kennedy's polished style and media savvy help sell these programs to the public, though Congress remains a battlefield. The 1960s would still transform American culture, but perhaps more gradually. Without the trauma of assassination, the decade might feel less chaotic. The Beatles still invade, rock and roll still explodes, and youth rebellion still rises. But the political assassinations of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and Robert Kennedy in our timeline might play out differently if JFK's survival changes the political mood. Because JFK cannot run for a third term, 1968 still becomes a turning point. Robert Kennedy might run for president as his brother's chosen successor. Richard Nixon might still make his comeback. The Democratic Party still fractures over Vietnam and civil rights. But the emotional shadow of JFK's death no longer hangs over the race, changing the dynamics of one of America's most turbulent elections. In our timeline, JFK was cut down before his legacy could be tested by time. A surviving JFK would have faced failures, scandals, and difficult choices. His reputation would depend on what he actually achieved, not just on promise and tragedy. He might be remembered as a great president, a flawed one, or something in between, but he would have had the chance to finish the story himself. This alternate timeline shows how much one bullet can change history. JFK's death shaped the presidency of Lyndon Johnson, the escalation in Vietnam, the civil rights movement, and the national psyche of the 1960s. A surviving JFK might have steered America down a different path, less traumatized, perhaps, but still facing the same enormous challenges of a divided nation and a dangerous world. John F. Kennedy remains one of the most fascinating figures in American history, partly because his presidency was unfinished. Imagining his survival helps us understand not just what we lost, but how fragile leadership and history truly are. The 1960s were a crossroads for America, and JFK's fate helped decide which road the nation took.